This is Defining Success, created by Filmspire.
Friends, welcome back to another episode of Defining Success. Again, my name is Taylor Quinn. I'm the owner of Filmspire. We're a video production and video marketing firm here in Richmond, Virginia, and we're excited to have Brian here with us. Brian, can you just briefly introduce yourself really quick?
Thanks for having me. Brian Koziol, the Executive Director of the Virginia Housing Alliance. I've been in Richmond coming up on 20 years.
Wow, 20 years.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I love that. Would you consider yourself a Richmonder at this point now?
I hope so. I definitely consider myself a Richmonder. I don't know if Richmonders would necessarily consider us Richmonders.
Yeah, it's always a loaded question. I think that's always really funny.
Yeah.
I've thought a lot about starting a whole nother podcast exploring that whole thing because I think it's really interesting, but we digress nonetheless. We've known each other for several years at this point. We've had a good working relationship. So Brian, can you briefly just tell us a little bit about, for those who don't know, what is Virginia Housing Alliance?
Yeah, so Virginia Housing Alliance is a nonprofit organization that works on affordable housing and ending homelessness across the Commonwealth. So we do a variety of things. Some legislative advocacy at the state level, capacity building for our nonprofit partners across the Commonwealth, and then education as well.
Nice. That's great. So, like I mentioned earlier, we've worked together for several years at this point. I can't remember how many awards videos we've done, at least 3, maybe even 4. I've kind of lost track at this point.
I was going to ask you before we started if you remember.
I think it's probably... I can't remember if this year is the 4th year or not, but it might have been the 4th year, or maybe definitely the 3rd year.
Yeah.
I can't remember because I feel like we did 2 that were very virtual, heavily virtual during COVID and COVID years-ish, and then we kind of did a hybrid of in-person filming. Well, you know what? No, I think this is the 4th year because we kind of did some at your office.
Yeah.
In-person filming maybe 3 years ago.
Even at the old office.
Yeah, at the old office. And then last year we were at, we rented that house, that space basically, through Envoy, I think. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We
Yeah,
did.
so I think 4.
And then this year we did here in the studio, and then we did remote and things like that. So,
Right.
Really the purpose of this podcast is we call it Defining Success because that's something we always ask our clients when we first start potentially working with them is like, how are we going to define success for this campaign, this project, and things like that. So, let's talk about the thing that we've done a lot of with you, which is the awards ceremony videos and things like that. Can you briefly tell us about what are the VHA awards, the purpose of it, and things like that? So kind of give us the big picture on the Virginia Housing Alliance awards.
Yeah, so we represent nonprofit and for-profit partners that are engaged in providing affordable housing and ending homelessness. And the award ceremony has been going on for over 35 years. I think this past year was our 36th year that we recognize kind of outstanding individuals in our industry. This is something I really believe, deeply in, is that people in the nonprofit sector, particularly in the housing world, are doing incredible work, and it's really important to kind of honor them. And so that's really the basis of the annual award ceremony, and the video I think is a really nice way to do that, and something that they can share with families, family and friends, and just via social media, and just kind of take a little bit of credit. I think a lot of folks in the nonprofit community are not ones that are seeking the spotlight or credit for the work that they do, but they certainly deserve some.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to think, years back when we first talked about doing the video portion for the awards ceremony, kind of in your mind, like why were you all thinking, you mentioned maybe nice for the family or for them to promote themselves, but what were some of the other goals or reasons for wanting to also add kind of the video portion segment? And that's sort of where, for people who don't know, the awardee, kind of gets a moment, as if they'd go up on a stage basically,
Right.
and kind of say something, a little blurb about their accomplishment or their organization's accomplishment and things like that. So we kind of gave the opportunity for everyone who got an award to say a little piece and kind of marry this all together in one seamless video that introduces each category and then allows the awardee to say something really quick. I mean, what was kind of the idea like behind that a little bit? Like why a video versus like coming up on stage and accepting an award, kind of the traditional kind of route? What was kind of the vision behind that, or the needs, the goals?
Yeah, well, I think one, you have this video forever, right? And I think there's a lot of value in that, right? So we can go back and we can share and document it, right? So that like we're capturing them, accepting this award, their remarks, and then also just kind of the logistics of an event, right? Getting people on stage, giving them time to speak, getting them off stage, getting the next speaker up. People have a limit of how long they're going to sit in a chair. And so just to be respectful to the people in the audience and keep we want everybody to have their time, right? But
right.
To just kind of keep the event rolling,
yeah.
I think is logistically important.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that, and it kind of also, we coach the awardees when they're getting their video segment that they have a limited amount of time because people can tend to ramble when they are in public and receiving an award, and so no one enjoys a 3 or 4 hour award ceremony. So
right.
Yeah, keeping it concise and tight and things like that. One of the challenges I think can be for this project that we do every year now is some people are here in Richmond, but some are kind of all over the state, right? So how do we do that? So what ways have we kind of creatively worked around that?
Yeah, so I mean, post-COVID, or really at beginning of COVID, right? I mean, everybody kind of jumped on virtual, interactions. And so I think that certainly, we would love everybody to trek down here and film in person. But I think adding that virtual component has really allowed, we're a statewide organization, so we're kind of challenged with this. I've got I've got board members all over the state. We've got members and partners all over the state. And so just having that flexibility of being able to, Zoom. I know it's not Zoom. You use another program, but it's high quality. It's I think really seamless, and you can capture what we need virtually without trekking down to far-flung corners of the Commonwealth.
Exactly. Yeah. We live in a world where people live remote, and we got to be flexible.
Yeah.
I know in years past too, we've had people who were much more older that are receiving this award, and coming down to Richmond could be a real challenge for them, and so we've been flexible and done things remotely, to kind of capture their soundbite, which has been really, really great. And making it easy, giving everyone a chance to have something that promotes themselves. Those are kind of one of our goals, I remember.
Yep.
Anything else that kind of came to your mind in terms of, what we were looking for that would make this a successful experience for you all or your awardees?
I think just a nice, clean, tight package, right? I mean, and those videos are not, they're not 30 minutes. I think we keep them about 10-ish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In engaging, right? And really kind of create some energy around the awardees themselves and the event.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, overall feedback, how has it been received? How have you all perceived or, enjoyed the video content? Have we done well? Kind of give us the feedback on how the video awards have been.
Yeah, I've been really happy with it. And I think each one has, each year has probably had its own challenges logistically and schedule-wise, and you all have been super flexible and kind of responsive to the changing dynamics of having different themes or not a theme. Mm-hmm. I think this year we didn't really settle into a theme, which certainly presents kind of challenges on your end, but no, overall, I think they've been really well received, and I think the audience
Yeah.
really enjoys,
Right.
watching this 10-minute thing where everybody gets to, they get to hear from everyone,
Yeah.
and just kind of it adds just kind of an extra human element to it.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure for them and their families to get them see them, up on the screen and celebrate with them, that's a huge win for them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and that's the thing. You've got, people have families all over, and so this is something that they can share with family and friends and say, hey, look at what I received.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, last year we did something also unique for you guys. We created a kind of an About Us video, kind of helping create a short video that explains who VHA is and what you all do and things like that. What have been some of the challenges with, maybe just simply communicating what you all do? Have you all had, experienced communication issues or challenges? Because, I remember us talking about, you guys do a lot. There's a lot you guys do. So does that become a challenge for you guys at all to help people clearly understand what you guys do or don't do? Has that ever been hard at times?
Definitely. And I think, starting 2 years ago, it kind of dawned on me. I was like, we're doing all of this work, right, and having really big impact, but we're not talking about it. And by nature, I'm a doer, right? And so it's head down work. But I was like, we're doing all of this work, and if you don't talk about it, if you don't tell that story, if you don't share successes, it may as well not have ever happened, right? And so we really kind of embarked on just being more forward facing, and I think that video was part of that, and a more robust just kind of communication strategy.
Yeah, for sure. I think I remember that project. Some of our goals were just creating a lot of clarity around what you do, because there's so much that you do. How do we boil it down to just a couple minutes for people to clearly understand? Right. We wanted to get some of, have VHA voice the video, but also have other voices, because that's what you all do. Like, you are an advocacy group for other for-profit, nonprofit housers, basically. So how can we get other people to really elevate your story by telling it kind of on your behalf? And so we came up with some solutions for how to do that, essentially. So we kind of boiled it down to, all right, Brian, here's what VHA does. It's education, it's advocacy, and capacity building.
Right.
Can you explain what kind of each of those three mean?
Yeah. So what we did was we did kind of a big survey, right, and kind of found that the responses were like, we were known for different things by different groups, right?
Right.
And so we were like, we need to be known for all of it by everyone, or as many people as possible. So, so education, we work with members and partners and service providers in the housing space to really just provide trainings and educational opportunities, right? We want a skilled workforce like every other industry, and we've got new people coming in, people retiring, people leaving to go do other things, and so this constant, need for knowledge and sharing of best practices and emerging issues is really, really important. And so we do, monthly educational series around a whole host of topics. We also hold 2 large conferences, both of which are coming up in October. So the Housing Credit Conference convenes all of the kind of people in Virginia and beyond working on tax credit, the tax credit program, which is the largest tool that we use to build affordable housing. And so that's about 425 individuals convene in Richmond. And then we have our Housing Virginia's Most Vulnerable conference, which is focused on all of the folks that are providing direct services for homelessness and permanent supportive housing. And so those are educational opportunities, professional development and networking, right? And just we build a lot of time into those programs to let people convene and, reconnect or make new connections and build relationships because, as you know, relationships underlie success.
Totally. Yeah.
And then so capacity building, we operate an AmeriCorps Vista program. And so we place up to 17 AmeriCorps Vista members at 17 host sites across the Commonwealth to help them build their organizational capacity. So they work on all sorts of things from communications to grant writing, managing volunteers, data analysis, and have had really, really great success with that program. We've kind of grown it over time and have found that about half of those Vista members get hired on at their host site at the end of their year of service. Half get hired on kind of at other organizations or kind of remain in the industry. And then a quarter of them go out, typically go back to graduate school. And then, so that's capacity building. And then we also started a BIPOC Leadership Institute this year, which we're super excited about, to just kind of address some disparities in housing leadership across the Commonwealth. And so that's a 10-month cohort.
Wow.
15 kind of mid-career individuals of color that are looking to gain some leadership skills to get them to the next level in their careers. So we are just a couple months into the first cohort, but the response that we've gotten from participants has been incredible. And then our legislative advocacy is, kind of, I think, largely a lot of the work that we're known for. And so we work at the state, at the state level to increase funding and resources for our industry, as well as, housing is a multifaceted issue. So it touches on, land use and zoning and regulatory reform and obviously funding. And so we work at all of those kind of levels on, supply, demand, and preservation issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we set out this challenge to how do we tell all that in a short period of time, because that is a lot.
It is a lot.
It is a lot. But we looped in, some great people. I was looking back at our notes. We looped in APA, and we looped in Carmen, their director there. We looped in Greta Harris with Better Housing. Kelly, she's on your board, so we did get a board member to participate. And Hunter with Bay Aging and things like that. And each of them kind of helped. You kind of in the video, you kind of laid the groundwork for here's VHA, here's our 3 core pillars for what we do, and then we had kind of each person kind of speak on each of those pillars particularly. Hunter, she did the AmeriCorps Vista program, so she talked about capacity building. I think Carmen talked about advocacy, and I think so did Greta too as well. And then Kelly, talked a lot about the education and things like that. So, it was great to involve lots of different voices and the voices of the members that you all support and work with. So how did we do? How did that film turn out? What was the response?
No, I thought it was great. It really kind of encapsulated, what was that video, 7 minutes maybe?
I think it was less than that. I think we really got it down to more like that 3 or 4 minute range. I think it was honestly
right.
probably 3.
I think I'm getting it confused with the annual awards video. No, it was to be able to communicate through other voices than ours.
Yeah, exactly.
Is super important to me because we work on behalf of our industry, right?
Yeah.
And so really having others speak about the work that we do is super important because that's the work we do, right? And I can talk about it all day long.
Exactly.
But having others talk about our impact and the value that we bring, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's one thing that I know for me and our team at Filmspire, when we try and tell these about us or brand stories, like that's always our approach, that let's try and find a way to get your clients, those that you serve, your customers, whoever that might be, to like really be the ones that tell your brand story, because it's so much more compelling, interesting to have those you touch and impact be your advocate and your storyteller.
Yeah.
Because, and everyone's seen these kinds of videos and where the CEO just says, we're amazing, we're awesome, we've been in business X number of years, and here's all we've done. I'm like, yeah, that's great. But when I hear it it's kind of a boring story in my opinion. But when you are able to incorporate the voices of those that you really touch, like, wow, that's so much more in my mind authentic. It's engaging. They can really probably say things that you wouldn't even think to say, but it still connects to your story and who you are.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And every CEO or executive director has got their elevator pitch, right?
Totally.
And you have it down, and the authenticity I think that you get from talking to or hearing from partners about the work that you do is, it's humbling, right?
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, incredibly a valuable part of, telling sharing your brand and the work that you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's always, fun to create these pieces. There's also always challenges. I remember we had to get a deadline you wanted to show the video at a conference, but then at the time, Greta had knee surgery, and so we had to, pivot for a little bit. But thankfully we had Carmen, who was already talking about advocacy, but then we did Greta later and worked with her because she was recovering. So, there's always like things we got to work around and things like that. And
and that's I think you all are so flexible. Even our last awards video, we had somebody who had been out for an extended period.
Yes.
And, I said, hey, I think a week before, and you were like, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
So and that's life, right? Like, it's flexibility is just is so important.
I'll ask you too if you don't mind, but what other things do you feel like Filmspire does well or has helped bring to the table, or things that you think we've done well based on your experience with us?
Yeah, look, I, as an executive director of a still small nonprofit, right? You quickly realize that the expectations of the job, right, kind of dictate that all these things, right? And I go into this work of like, I know very little, right?
I know nothing.
So yeah. And so I really rely on our partners to provide the subject matter expertise, right? Whether it is, communications or videography and storytelling, advocacy, policy, you really rely on and build relationships and trust others to help you do the work, right?
Right.
And so that's, I think, the value that you all is just what you're doing, right? And you've got a vision, you've got experience, you've got years of knowledge that you've built over time to provide incredible value to our projects.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That means a lot. We've loved working with you. It's been great to just we love it when we get to work with clients on a regular basis and a consistent basis. So we just think that it makes the experience so much better, so much richer, makes the communication so much easier, right? There is more grace, there's more flexibility, because there's a great rapport that we have and things like that.
Yeah, there's a relationship undergirding them.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked a little bit about VHA. Oh, and also, on a side note, I had a great meeting last week it was this week with Beth with Housing Families First.
Oh yeah.
And she mentioned she has one of your AmeriCorps Vistas.
They got an AmeriCorps Vista.
That's
this
great.
Year. No, Beth is a great partner.
Yeah, just so funny that popped up this week. But part of this other part of this podcast is we're talking about the successful projects we've worked on, but we also want our clients. We want to know from them, how do they define success within their organization, for themselves, for their team? So, Brian, how would VHA, how would Virginia Housing Alliance, what does success mean for you all? How would you all define success at Virginia Housing Alliance?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a multifaceted question,
Yeah.
right? And it probably looks differently organizationally. I want our team to have a pretty good work-life balance, right? And to do that, you have to be flexible, right? I think flexibility is
Yeah.
probably the most off word we're going to use today, but
Yeah.
the and so providing folks the opportunity to have a healthy work-life balance and a flexible work environment. We're part hybrid. Folks are in 2 or 3 days of the week, and not. I'm very very flexible with how people where they work from. As long as it's outcome driven, right? As long as folks are producing, I don't care, where you are.
Right.
If you're in the Bahamas working, good for you.
Great.
Yeah. I wish I'd gotten the
Don't
invite.
get sunburned.
Yeah, I wish I'd gotten the invite.
Yeah.
And then just building team and making sure that everybody feels empowered to make decisions on their own.
Yeah.
And part of the team is super important, and I think that I believe in stability, right? In our work, in the nonprofit sector, you see there's a lot of churning, right? And to make impact, you have to have people engaged in the work so that you're not constantly hiring, you're not constantly searching for new team members, because progress is made over careers, and so it's super important to do everything I can to retain a solid team and build a really exceptional team, which I believe that we have done.
That's great.
Yeah.
And how would you kind of answer that same question about defining success when it comes to your all's partners, as that you're advocating for your members and things like that? How would you kind of define it from that standpoint?
Yeah. So a lot of the work that we do is in the state budget, right? And so we've had really good success in growing different pots of money that impact the work that our partners do. And so, my goal is to, in a perfect world, right, we would not have affordability issues. We would not have homelessness, right?
Yeah.
And we are moving towards, better places in some of those categories. I do think that ending kind of chronic street, unsheltered homelessness there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It is an achievable thing, with enough coordination, enough resources, and certainly an increase in capacity of those organizations. And so, providing, it's value based, right? I want our members to feel like we are providing a return on their investment of time and energy, and that they're happy with us, right?
Yeah.
And so we consistently do surveys with members and kind of engage them, and just pulse checks of hey, are we doing a good job?
Yeah. The other part of this podcast too is having our guests come on as well. And Brian, you're the executive director of an amazing nonprofit. I'd love to kind of ask you personally, like, what things do you feel like have helped you be successful in your career to get you to where you are today, and things like that, like core values, practices, rituals you have, things you believe. What do you think for you? How have you personally defined success for Brian Koziol?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I view there are short-term and long-term successes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have and certainly celebrate legislative wins, right, with our partners and with legislators that are supportive of our work. But But really, I think for me, I look at it over the long term, right? And so much of the work we do is kind of something that I think has benefited me is I've got a innate ability to bang my head against the wall, for a long time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And persistence, right?
Yeah.
Because it is a long game, and I think that success is measured over careers, right? And that's one of the things with our annual awards is we always honor and induct, Hall of Fame inductees each year that have retired. And it's so kind of humbling to see the impact that these folks have made over their careers. So I think for me, it is really just kind of a long game, and measuring success over time and what we've been able to achieve. I struggle with work-life balance, as probably everybody in my position does. And so I've, the last couple of years I've really been focusing on that. And, I've got 2 incredible daughters. And, we are doing everything we can to spend as much time, experiencing life with them as we possibly can. And I've gotten better of, hey, work is always going to be there, right? I mean, the mountain of work we all have is going to be there on Monday, right?
Yeah.
And so kind of figuring out how to navigate, the limited time, right? In the day and in the week and in the month and in the year, and just not let it slip by. And so really prioritizing, on a daily basis, how I spend my time.
Yeah, we all have 24 hours in the day. Everyone does. And absolutely. Yeah, I've tried to learn the same thing of just like, I've got much younger kids, right. But like, man, they're just growing like crazy, like weeds, just so fast, basically. And I already feel that, like, man, like making the most of my time when I'm with them and being present. And I could also do the same of just, I guess I'm going to work late tonight or whatever, but it's about that choice and what are you going to do with those 24 hours and how are you going to use them?
That's right. Yeah. And being present, is with everybody.
Yeah. Everyone,
is really important. And so
that's true.
When you have time, whether it's with your kids or your partner or, a team member, a partner from, down in Bristol or in Northern Virginia, that's the focus, right? That 30-minute call or that hour-long call, that is the focus. And when you're at home, that's the focus.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
It is hard.
My mind never stops. And so it's, that's the goal. I think that's actually what success looks like for me, is just being present in the moment.
So true. Yeah. And just, I've been having that same thought of just like, how do I show up as my best self for each person in each interaction, basically, but I've also learning I have to give myself grace. Like I may not show up perfectly, but like, at least I'm going to show up, and do that.
No. And I feel strongly that showing up is 70%, of it. And man, maybe that's high, right? But
sure.
I'm a firm believer that, if someone asks, I need to show up.
Yeah. Be there. Yeah.
I was in Hopewell, last night at a housing forum, and, at an event on Tuesday night. And, you have to juggle, right? You have to juggle that work-life balance. But when people invite you to attend, it's important to be there.
Yeah.
And that's the same. I was making a drive to Wytheville, get up super early in the morning, do a 2-hour meeting, and come home. Long day, right? But the value of being there and showing that you care by making that effort to be there is invaluable.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brian, kind of just wrapping up a little bit, again, it's been great to work with you. Would you
likewise
recommend other nonprofits, other for-profits connecting with Filmspire and based on your experience?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you all do a great job and have really helped us talk about who we are and tell our story.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks, Brian, for coming. If people want to learn more about Virginia housing, what can they do? Where should they go?
So the easiest way is vahousingalliance.org. And, that is probably the best connection point.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Brian, again, I thank you. I know Deidre thanks you as well. Yeah.
And, thanks for being flexible.
Yes.
And moving me up earlier in the day.
Of course. Yeah. Well, you're going to go doing a fun trip this weekend, which is great. So, again, Brian, thanks again. It's been awesome to work with you. We're super pleased with how these films have turned out. We're looking forward to a continued relationship. So, thanks again, Brian, for coming. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Take care, guys. Bye.